So welcome back. Let's start with the understanding the principle of induction motor. There are three motors actually: induction motor, synchronous motor, and DC motor. Similarly, there are three generators: synchronous generator, induction generator, DC generator. So now today we are going to discuss the three-phase induction motor. So let us have a look at this picture here which I have drawn. I have a stator and I have a rotor. On the stator I have three phase windings shown as RR dash, YY dash and BB dash. Alright. Similarly, replicating them on the rotor, also I have RR dash winding, YY dash winding, BB dash winding. The number of turns, let's say on the stator could be like N1 per phase and on the rotor could be N2 per phase, need not be same. As discussed earlier, these windings are distributed windings, both on the stator and on the rotor. Why are they distributed windings? Because I want to create a rotating MMF wave, and that's a rotating MMF wave is just a rotating magnet which I am going to create by the three-phase winding on the stator. Using this three-phase distributed winding carrying three-phase distributed winding in space carrying three-phase distributed currents in time, I am going to create a rotating, effectively a rotating magnet or a rotating MMF wave, and then these windings on the rotor, the structure which is called as rotor. But when we say a structure is called as a rotor, what basically we mean is that this structure has freedom to rotate. The stator is not having a freedom to rotate. You will bolt it down with a solid ground foundation, but the rotor structure is mounted on bearings and therefore it has a freedom to rotate, like what you see for example in your fans for example. So now this rotating MMF wave which is created in the stator, that will sweep these three phase windings associated with the rotor. Now what I am going to do is these three phase windings here, I am going to short circuit them. I'm not going to connect, unlike a transformer, I'm not going to connect anything to the any load to these three phase windings. I'm just going to short circuit it. If that is what I do, then really speaking, this discussion of differentiation of three phase windings on the rotor is somewhat academic. All really physically I need to do is create a three winding structure like this, a cage rotor like this. Inside is of course iron, and these are the copper bars spread uniformly across it, and then just short circuit them using these two structures at the end. This is called as a cage rotor, and the length of this rotor is going to be L, and the magnet, so to say, is north somewhere here and south somewhere here, and is going to rotate. This rotating magnet is created by the rotating MMF wave on the stator. So because this magnet here is rotating, what it will do, the rotor will try to catch the magnet and rotate along with it. That's the basic principle of this. Just like if you have iron filing, let's say, for a sake of simplicity, if you have an iron filing somewhere or a compass needle, something like this here, and you have a north and a south magnet sitting here, and this magnet, if you rotate, then these needles will automatically try to catch with it, align with it, and just rotate and start spinning. Something similar is going to happen here. So you have a rotating MMF wave or effectively a rotating magnet, which is created out of the three-phase stator windings, and that's really the beauty of it. Nothing rotates in the stator, yet the magnetic field that it creates in this air gap is going to rotate, and therefore we are going to write this rotating MMF wave or the flux B wave as B of theta comma t, so it's a function of theta and a function of time, is equal to Bm of cos of theta minus omega of t. Let's fix our description of rotating MMF wave or a flux density wave as this. Now, as it sweeps, for example, let's take the R phase winding here, then what is going to happen? The flux which is enclosed in this R phase winding will also change with time. And first of all, to see how it changes with time, first of all, right, for the time being, I'm holding the R phase. I'm as if like holding my rotor structure for the time being. I'm not allowing this rotor structure to move for the time being. So the variable is so therefore if I now want to analyze the flux which is there in this R phase winding, then it is going to be Bm cos of theta minus omega t into dot, it's basically B dot ds. To calculate ds, first I should calculate the arc. So a small angle theta here or a small arc here is going to be r times the d theta angle. So the r times d theta into the length. So that's a small arc which is going to be created here, and the B, as we said, is either directed radially outwards from it or radially inwards up from it, depending upon that side whether it is having a north pole or a south pole. And so Bm cos of theta minus omega t Lr d theta has to be integrated, and since I have used all the 360 degrees, the spread of each of these three windings are there. So 360 by 3 will make it 120 degrees. So the first one, because this is my reference axis, so for the RR dash, I should go from minus 60 degree to plus 60 degree, making it a 120 degree spread. And now if you integrate this with respect to theta, then the integral of cosine is going to be sine. So I write this as BMLR sine of theta minus omega t, where with uh, uh, with minus pi by 3 on the lower side of the definite integral and plus pi by 3 on the upper side of the integral. So therefore BMLR sine of pi by 3 minus of omega t minus of sine of minus pi by 3 minus of omega t. So take this minus out, minus out outside makes it plus. So sine of pi by 3 minus omega t plus sine of pi by 3 plus of omega t. And now if you use sine of a plus b plus sine of a minus b, then that is 2 sine a cos b. So therefore sine of this is the a plus b, this is a minus b. So a is pi by 3. So 2 sine, so 2 sine pi by 3 cos of omega t, and the sine of 60 degrees being root 3 by 2. So this will 2 will go away and we will get root 3 BMLR, root 3 BMLR cos of omega of t. So if I keep this, if I don't allow this rotor to rotate for the time being in my discussion, then what I see is that the flux which is associated with the R phase winding on the rotor is a cosine wave in time, with this being the phi m, which is proportional to the length which is proportional to the radius. So bigger the machine, bigger the flux, smaller the machine, smaller the flux for the same BM being created from the stator. Now, if this is basically a transformer action, right? So the mechanics is bit different from the way we did discussed in the three-phase transformer. The shell type construction or the core type construction of the three-phase transformer did not provide any possibility of creating a rotating MMF wave, but here there is a very nice rotating MMF wave which is created. But again, so long, even if the MMF wave is rotating, it is only causing a rate of change of flux. It's a mutually coupled winding. It is causing a rate of change of flux in the secondary winding. Now the primary winding is on the stator, the secondary winding is on the rotor. The rate of change of flux is again obtained, and when there is a rate of change of flux, then there will be a induced EMF. And as per our sign convention, we will write that as ER is equal to plus d phi by d plus d phi r by d of t. Okay. Now, first before going there, I have calculated the flux associated with the R phase winding. Now, the whatever happens on the R phase winding, if the rotating flux is in this direction, anti-clockwise direction, then this Y winding will see it only 120 degrees apart by the nature of its symmetry, and the B phase winding will see it another 120 degrees apart, or minus 4 pi by 3, or effectively plus 2 pi by 3. So once we have written the R phase flux, we can immediately write the flux associated with the Y phase, and we can write the flux associated with the B phase, RYB or ABC. Both the nomenclatures are commonly used. The advantage of RYB is you can color code it, and that is easy to identify for a engineer working on the field. ABC is a nice simple nomenclature. Now, if this is the induced EMF, which is the rate of change of flux associated with this, then uh, then what we have to do is, and deliberately I have not written the number of turns here because I don't want to, I still don't want to fully get, I have still not fully addressed the issue of distributed windings. So if you want, I'll write it k times, and I'll for the time being assume k is 1, but actually it could be somewhat less than 1, but for the time being we'll leave with that. It doesn't matter right now for our discussion, so that factor we can always carry forward later on. So what I'm going to do is assume for the timing that the ER is proportional to rate of change of flux. In a concentrated winding, it just becomes, if the number of turns are n, then it just becomes the flux linkages is just multiplied by n. But since here the flux, it is distributed winding, we need to account for that spatial effect. So for the time being, we are just taking that factor still to be equal to 1 or n1 if you want. You can call it instead of 1, you could as well say that this is going to be n1 here. Later on, we will adjust this subsequently. So then ER will become equal to K times uh, K times d phi r by dt, where for the time being I am taking k to be equal to n1, but and the plus is fine. As I told you, this is just a question of sign convention. You if you just reverse the polarity, the minus becomes plus and pluses become minus. So therefore, this aspect we have discussed earlier also. Our notion is we always write circuit convention is to write V or to be equal to E equal to d psi by dt. So that's what we have done here. Now, because it's just a sinusoidal flux is just sinusoidally varying in time, it can be represented by a phasor with this being the peak amplitude and 1 by root 2 of it being the RMS value. So therefore, the induced EMF will also be sinusoidal and can be represented by phasor. And as discussed earlier, for this, the d by dt operator can just be replaced by the j omega, and therefore what's going to happen, we got the induced waveform associated with the R phase, which is going to be sinusoidal in type. Now, the induced EMF in the Y phase will also be sinusoidal, but it will lag by 120 degrees, and the induced wave EMF in the B phase will also be sinusoidal, but will lead by 120 degrees. Now, what is the consequence of this induced EMF? My rotor, caged rotor, is a short circuit. All the copper bars here are short circuited. Here all the windings are short circuited. So if if the uh, if the secondary winding has a resistance of R2 and a leakage reactance of JX2 at the fundamental frequency omega m, then the secondary winding, see, induction machine is also called a generalized transformer because you can see the simile of the functioning of the transformer and the induction machine here. So therefore, stator windings are many times shown as R1, X1, and rotor windings impedances are shown by R2, X2, and so on. So here, then the current which will be flowing through the secondary winding will be uh, current which will be flowing through the secondary winding will be um, ER by uh, ER by Z2, ER by Z2, and that is going to be equal to uh, ER by Z2. I'm really sorry. And then the current which will flow through the Y phase winding will be EY by Z2, and the current which will flow through the B phase winding will be EB by Z2. These currents, okay, these three phase currents which are now induced in the secondary winding, these three phase currents which are now induced in the secondary winding, what will they do? They will also create a rotating MMF wave in the rotor winding. Is it not? Because why? Because we have three phase distributed windings in space carrying three phase distributed currents in time, and they are balanced. So everything is becomes the same effectively, and you will get a rotating MMF wave which will rotate at the what frequency? The frequency of the currents. What is the frequency of the currents or the EMF? Power frequency. So therefore you will create a rotating MMF wave at power frequency. Now, if the rotor is released, all right, now suppose you don't hold on to this rotor, then what will happen? It will start spinning in the direction of the rotating MMF wave. Why? Because the Lenz's law says that the action should be, induced EMF should be such so as to oppose the change, the rate of change. So if the if your magnet is rotating and the currents have to be induced in such a way that given freedom to rotate, the rotating structure will try to chase or catch up with respect to your rotating magnet which has been created, induced on the stator, so that no change is seen. So therefore, I'm not drawing the specifically the currents. You can actually physically draw the currents, but I'm not trying to right now go into that microscopic detail. But you should draw, you should, using Lenz law principle, mark the directions of induced EMFs and actually draw the currents and see that those try to rotate the rotor in the direction of the uh, MMF, rotating MMF wave. Fine. Now this is my rotor structure. This is the torque which is created due to this electromagnetic induction. So I call it as TE or TEM. And in general, motors have to do work, so they have to rotate something. So there will be a load torque TL which they want to drive, and this will be the basic equation of the motion, which is J is the moment of inertia times d omega by dt should be equal to the net torque which is acting on this rotor structure, which is Te minus TL. Now, now for the time being, TL is 0 because I have not put any load on the rotating. I have not put any load on the rotor. Then what should be, if I want to reach a steady state condition, what should be TE? TE should be 0 because if TL is 0 and T is not 0, then the machine will keep accelerating. So if you have to have a steady state, then the TE should become equal to 0. But when will TE become equal to 0? When there is no current in the rotor winding. When will there be no current in the rotor winding? When the rotor winding itself rotates at synchronous speed. So only then there will not be any rotating, there will not be any torque which will be induced in the rotor structure. So under an ideal condition, but just assuming that there is just enough to damp out any transient, what it means is that the rotor should spin now at synchronous speed. The omega s, the synchronous speed, the rotor should start spinning at the synchronous speed at no load condition. Now suppose you have actually applied some torque, a load torque, a retarding load torque you have put applied on this rotor. Then under the steady state, what has to happen? There should be TE generated by the motor, so that TE should become equal to TL, in which case only the d omega by dt will become 0, or omega will become stationary, omega will get a constant value. Now to generate this TE, the rotor cannot spin at power frequency, because the rotor, if it spins at power frequency, then there is no relative change of flux associated with it. So no induced EMF, no current in the rotor bars, no current in the rotor bars, no force generated due to BIL action, no force generated due to, where the B comes from, where? Stator. I comes from where? Rotor. And L is the length. And you can see that the angles are 90 degrees, so the sine 90 is 1. So no current means no torque, no force. No force means no torque. No torque means uh, it will not even start. So what is under the steady state, some current has to flow in the rotor winding, so that the BIL is generated, which will be multiplied by R, will generate torque, and then you have to adjust it by the number of turns and so on, and TE will become equal to TL. For currents to induce, the machine should fall back. Now the machine means the rotor structure should fall back now from the speed of omega s. So it should slip back, we say, and let us say that it slipped back by a fraction of zero point 0.1, let's say for example, then that means it will be rotating at 0.9 times the synchronous speed. So if s is 0.1, slips back by 10%, then it will rotate at 90% of the synchronous speed, or 0.9 times omega s, for example. So this S is called the slip. It's called the slip, and it is nothing but you rewrite this equation as omega m minus omega s, or rather, uh, 1 minus s is omega m by omega s, and simplify it, so you get slip as omega s minus omega m by omega s. So it's a dimensionless quantity, it's a per unit quantity, it is called slip. Now if the machine has slipped back by slip s, then what is going to happen? The voltages that will be induced in it, the voltages that will be induced in it will be related to the rotation, the mmf, the magnet which is created out of the stator, the rotating mmf wave which is creating out of the stator is now rotating with relative to the rotor at a speed omega s minus omega m, which is same as slip times of omega s. So because it is rotating at a s times of omega s, the induced EMFs in the rotor will create currents also in it at the frequency s omega s, and therefore those currents will set up a rotating MMF given by this. I'll use the word BR theta comma t of the value some BMR into cos of theta minus s times of omega s of t. Correct? S times of omega s of t. This will be created now at the slip frequency. Now you again do the integration, so you will see that you can calculate the flux associated with the rotor, winding, and from there again you can calculate using similar philosophy, the similar things that we did in the previous thing. You can create an induced EMF of the, calculate the induced phasor EMF of the rotor, and the frequency however this time is going to be at s omega s. So then let's say for example if you are looking at the R phase winding, then at standstill if the voltage created was E2, from this discussion it is very clear that the induced EMF which will be created now is going to be SE2, because all the physical constants otherwise have remained same, and the currents earlier were R2 by plus uh, E2 divided by R2 plus j omega s L2. So instead of that, now the rotor currents are only at frequency s omega. So the reactance will proportionately reduce, resistance will remain the same. So the new currents are going to be SE2 divided by 1 plus SE2 divided by R2 plus J S omega L2, or or if I want to write it in terms of E2 only, then I can write it as E2 divided by R2 by S plus Jx L2, where this is the reactance or the leakage reactance associated with the uh, uh, associated with the rotor winding. Now understand this principle clearly. There is a very clear induction machine is just a generalized transformer, a rotating transformer in some sense. So now understand what's happening very clearly. There is a current induced in the rotor winding. This rotor winding currents, which are at the frequency of at the slip frequency s times of omega s times of omega s. This is the frequency of the current here. This current these currents are going to create a rotating MMF wave or a rotating B wave due to the three-phase rotor currents, which will rotate at speed s omega s relative to the rotor. But the rotor itself is rotating at 1 minus omega s of this, and then the rotor is rotating at 1 minus s omega s, but the slip frequency over and above this is the rotating MMF wave of the rotor, but the rotor itself is rotating at this frequency. So if you look, if for an observer sitting on the stator, he is going to see a rotating MMF wave at omega s. It's like this: suppose you are sitting outside and you are on some spinner, and it is spinning at something like, let's say, this is spinning at something like 10 revolutions per second, and then you start running on it at 5 revolutions per second. Then for a observer, stationary observer outside, he will see that you are revolving at 15. Same principle is being used here, and I am saying that the rotating MMF wave relative to rotor is at the frequency s omega s. The rotor itself is rotating at 1 minus s omega s. So therefore, for an observer on the stator, the MMF wave created by the rotor is going to still rotate at omega s. So the thing is that the stator creates a MMF wave first, which rotates at omega s. Rotor is also now creating a MMF wave which rotates at speed omega s for observer sitting at a stationary observer. So this rotating MMF wave created by the rotor, what will it do? It will create a rate of change of flux in the stationary stator winding. When the stator winding will see a rate of change of flux happening, then to cancel out, it will have to create its own current to oppose it, and then effectively you are back to the transformer principle of N1 I1 equal to N2 I2 for ideal transformer. This is the principle that we use. Similar principle comes into play here. So what I am saying is, this current is the rotating MMF wave of the rotor will create equivalently a current N2 by N1 times of I2, equivalently a current of which we'll say later on as I2 dash, referred to the primary. It will create a current of that, and the currents which are going to be induced in the in the stator are going to be at power frequency only. They will be at power frequency. The rotor currents are at frequency s omega s. The induced currents in the stator, however, will be at the induced cancelling currents, and the stator will however be at frequency omega s, and they are essentially this. So now we can use the transformer equivalent circuit to equivalent circuit now to discuss this thing further, and uh, leading to this description of induction machine being a generalized transformer. And the induction from stator to rotor is what is causing the rotation action. That is why the word induction machine is there. So I'll write primary winding leakage as R1 plus jX1. R1 is the resistance. Xm and Rm are the similarly the magnetizing impedance and the losses associated with it. The magnetizing impedance here should be lower than our normal transformer, because the air gap means higher reluctance means lower Xm. Then this is the ideal transformer, and then so turns can be, effective turns are N1 by N2, then E1 E2 XL2, and XL2 is this, and the resistance however should now be written as R2 by the resistance should now be written as R2 by S. Now we can get rid of this by referring it to the primary. So I use XL2 dash and R2 dash by S as the nomenclature, and now this current will become I2 dash. And now what I will do is, I will replace this part with a equivalent Thevenin's impedance RTH and ZTH, so that for analysis of power transferred to the rotor, I remove this, short circuit this, calculate the RTH and ZTH open circuit voltage here, that is the VTH, which I should be writing here rather than V1. So I should write this as the VTH, which can be approximated by V1 if this drop is negligible. That is what I am going to do. And then R XL2 dash and R2 dash by S. So the this becomes the equivalent circuit of the induction machine, very similar to the transformer equivalent circuit per phase, except that the slip comes into the picture of this secondary resistance. It's no more R2 dash, it is actually written here as R2 dash by S. Using this equivalent circuit, next lecture I will derive the torque speed characteristic of the induction machine. We will take a break here. Thank you.